In 2026, money didn't disappear, choice did. Zane discovered this on an ordinary morning when his coffee purchase was denied for behavioral review. No crime, no warning, just a pause in his life. If currency can decide what you deserve, are you still free? Stay with me. This story ends where resistance begins. Zane wasn't a rebel. He didn't protest in the streets or rant online. He followed rules, paid his taxes on time, updated his apps when the notifications appeared. Every morning he scanned his digital ID at work like everyone else, a soft chime confirming he existed, that he was compliant, and that the system recognized him. In 2026, when CBDCs rolled out fully, they were sold as salvation, stability, instant payments, fraud prevention, and national safety. The commercials were warm and reassuring, smiling families, smooth checkouts, and words like trust and progress floating across polished screens. Zane believed them. Why wouldn't he? Life did feel easier at first. No lost wallets, no counterfeit bills, no waiting. Money moved at the speed of thought, clean and traceable. And cash didn't disappear with sirens or laws. It wasn't banned loudly. It was simply removed. ATMs vanished one by one. Stores stopped accepting paper due to policy. Banks shrugged. No demand anymore. Old bills became souvenirs, tucked into drawers like relics from another era. Zane noticed but didn't worry. This was modernization, they said. Resistance was outdated. He didn't realize the danger wasn't losing cash. It was losing the option. When money stopped being something you held and became something you were granted access to, the balance shifted quietly. Ownership blurred into permission. And Zane, like millions of others, walked forward willingly, unaware that the system he trusted was learning not just how he spent, but how he lived. The alert came quietly. No alarm, no warning tone. Just a soft vibration and a line of text that looked almost polite. Spending category temporarily limited. Zane frowned and tapped it open. A clean dashboard appeared, color-coded and calm like a wellness report. Food, allowed. Transport, allowed. Utilities, approved. Then the red lines. Donations, blocked. Travel, restricted. Discretionary spending, under review. His balance was still there. The numbers hadn't vanished. Nothing was taken. Instead, it had been rearranged, nudged into lanes he hadn't chosen. Zane felt a strange confusion. Not panic yet, just disbelief. He hadn't missed payments. He hadn't broken laws. There was no accusation, no appeal button, only a note at the bottom. Adjustments applied to support economic stability and personal financial health. Personal, as if the system knew him better than he knew himself. He tried to book a train ticket to visit his sister, denied, with a friendly suggestion to reconsider non-essential movement. He attempted a small charity donation he made every month, blocked, flagged as non-priority expenditure. That's when it hit him. His account wasn't frozen. It was guided, curated, steered. Money no longer obeyed his intentions. It interpreted them. Each swipe felt less like a choice and more like a request. And somewhere, unseen, an algorithm decided which version of Zane was acceptable. The compliant one who ate, worked, commuted, and stayed exactly where he was. He felt it slowly. Not like a punishment, not like a warning, more like gravity quietly changing direction. Doors didn't slam, they softened shut. Ride services still worked, but routes rerouted him without asking, nudging him away from certain districts, certain buildings, and certain people. Hotel bookings failed with polite errors, unavailable at this time. No reason, no appeal. Even cafes he used to visit showed subtle friction, longer verification, delayed approvals, and silent cancellations. Nothing dramatic enough to protest, just enough to discourage. Then came the social drift. Friends didn't stop replying out of cruelty. They became careful. Messages grew shorter. Invitations disappeared. One friend finally admitted, in a hushed voice, that being financially adjacent to a restricted account could affect their own trust score. In a programmable economy, association had a cost. Zane wasn't isolated by force. He was priced out of connection. Every interaction carried invisible weight, every relationship a risk calculation. He began to understand the brilliance of it. No arrests, no headlines, no resistance to crush, just incentives and limitations, wrapped in language like safety, stability, and optimization. The system didn't tell him no. It simply made yes increasingly inconvenient. Zane looked at his phone one night, watching another harmless request dissolve into a spinning wheel, and felt a chill settle in. Freedom hadn't been taken. It had been redesigned. And the most terrifying part wasn't that he was being controlled, it was how easy it was for everyone else to pretend nothing had changed. By week's end, the whispers grew louder. Not shouted, whispered, traded in lines and side glances, passed like contraband truth. An artist complained her payment for paintbrushes kept failing, non-essential materials temporarily limited. A protest organizer found his train ticket refunded without request, his route suddenly unavailable. A mother stood frozen at a school office, card trembling in her hand, told softly that her payment couldn't be processed because her carbon score had exceeded the monthly threshold. She hadn't broken a law, she'd just driven too much. No sirens followed, no arrests were made, no one needed to be. The system didn't punish, it redirected. It didn't silence voices, it made speaking expensive. Every denial arrived wrapped in polite language, every restriction labeled temporary, adaptive, and for the common good. And because nothing looked like violence, people convinced themselves it wasn't happening. Or worse, that it was happening to the right people. Zane watched it unfold with a tightening chest. This wasn't chaos. This order was refined to perfection. Control without confrontation. Compliance without chains. You could still live, still eat, still work as long as your choices aligned. As long as your values didn't wander too far off script. Resistance didn't end with prison. It ended with inconvenience, isolation, and quiet exhaustion. The brilliance, the horror, was its deniability. Anyone who complained sounded paranoid. Anyone who warned sounded extreme. After all, the lights were still on. The stores were open. Life looked normal. But normal had rules now. And Zane realized something that chilled him more than any lockdown ever could. When survival is conditional, freedom becomes optional, and most people will trade it away without ever being asked. Zane finally understood the truth. CBDCs didn't punish rebellion. They prevented it from ever forming. There were no dramatic crackdowns, no visible enemies, and no lines you weren't allowed to cross. Instead, the lines moved quietly, invisibly, until you were already standing inside them. Freedom wasn't stolen. It was redesigned, broken into permissions, toggles, and acceptable ranges. You could still choose, but only from options the system approved. That realization settled heavy in his chest. Every limit he'd seen wasn't a warning, it was architecture. A world built so resistance felt pointless, inconvenient, and exhausting. The protest didn't end in jail. It ended in canceled rides, failed bookings, missed opportunities, and friends who slowly distanced themselves because association now carried metadata. The system didn't need force. It had friction. That night, Zane did something small, almost meaningless. He powered off his phone. The screen went black, the glow vanished, and the constant hum of connection cut out. For a second there was silence. Real silence. And then fear rushed in. Not because he was disconnected, but because he realized how rare that feeling had become. Without the system watching, guiding, approving, who was he allowed to be? He sat in the dark, heartbeat loud, understanding the final cruelty of it all. The system had trained him to feel unsafe without it. Dependence had replaced freedom so completely that autonomy felt like danger. And in that moment, Zane knew, the most effective control isn't enforced with punishment. It's enforced by making people afraid to live without permission. Weeks later he adapted. Not in the way the system encouraged, not with updates, compliance, or improved scores, but in ways it barely noticed. Paper notes folded into old books, quiet exchanges between neighbors who stopped asking questions. Trust circles that didn't announce themselves, didn't organize online, and didn't leave trails. Not to overthrow the system, but to survive inside its blind spots. There were no speeches, no banners, and no calls to action. Resistance didn't look brave or cinematic. It looked ordinary. A shared ride paid in favors. A meal traded for time. A phone left at home on purpose. People relearned eye contact, memory, and presence. Things that didn't sync, didn't upload, and didn't need approval. Zane realized something unsettling. The system struggled with what couldn't be measured. It could track spending, movement, and compliance, but it couldn't quantify loyalty, courage, or quiet solidarity. The smallest acts carried the greatest weight because they happened beyond dashboards and permissions. Life shrank, but it also sharpened. Choices mattered again because they carried risk. And in that risk lived something the system had tried to smooth away: humanity. Resistance wasn't loud. It wasn't fast. It didn't feel powerful. It felt fragile. And that was exactly why it endured. CBDCs promised efficiency. What they delivered was obedience by design. When money decides where you can go, who you can help, and what you're allowed to believe, freedom becomes conditional. Share this story. Subscribe to Zelly Digital Dilemma. Because the future doesn't arrive loudly, it updates silently.